Hello again. This is Rod Clarken. This is the fourth of a four-part series talking about truth, love, and justice. In the first 20-minute segment, we talked about truth, love, and justice as a concept, as how they relate to one another and how they can moderate one another. In the second session, we focused on truth and what truth looks like. The third session was about love and how you develop and what love is about. And again, all of these are just introductions, just a beginning conversation for us to explore these topics. And much more can be gone into depth. And if you are interested, I have written a book called Truth, Love, and Justice, where I have different chapters on these different parts, and also a lot more about how to apply them, about how they look in life and things like that. So you may find that helpful. And if you're interested, it's free online by just Googling my name, Rod Clarken, and you'll find my website and a lot of books and papers and different ideas where you can see this very idea of truth, love, and justice has been something I've been developing over 40 years. And so this is kind of a culmination of all those years of thinking about it, of applying it, of using those, the practice of acting on it, reflecting on it, consulting with other people about it. Often when I'm giving these talks, I speak, and normally I'm with people and there's question and answer, so it becomes an interchange. And then finally, by studying. I constantly am studying. I'm in my 70th year of life, and I still find so much to learn and so much to study, which again I think is the one of the keys that you will come to if you begin this process. That the more you learn, the more you know you don't know. The more you try to love, the more you realize how much you have more to be loving about. The more you try to be just, the more you realize how far you have to go. And so now I'd like to talk about justice, because of the three, I think justice is maybe the topic that is a little bit more less talked about in the literature. I think it is essential. When we talk about truth, as I said earlier, that really, if you have to choose which one of these to focus on in your own self, as an individual, you should be independently, as an individual, seeking truth. In a community, for instance, when I'm in a community and I serve on boards and such, as I told you in the last, I always used to focus on being the person who knew something in those boards. Later on, I began to back off of that and be the person who created unity in those bodies. That my focus was not first to bring knowledge, but it was to bring unity. And by doing that, by being caring, by being compassionate, by being courteous, by showing kindness, by not trying to be dominant, not trying to be superior, not trying to be better or act better than anybody else. And then finally, the idea of being fair. So that's one of the things that has helped me a lot, because the way I grew up, I didn't grow up with a sense of justice kind of outside of my own ego, ethnocentric sense. And in fact, as an individual, I tended to favor truth initially, and then as an individual in my relationships, love. And I really backed off of justice. And I had to come more familiar and more comfortable with the concept and the power of justice as I became an adult. and particularly when I became a teacher and a professor. Because as a professor, I saw my first role as being truthful to the students, giving them truth, giving them knowledge. And so I took that responsibility to heart, and I tried to study and learn and be able to give them the best knowledge that was available. And in terms of being compassionate and caring, I tried to love my students and to show them that I cared for them, and to try to, out of that care, to help them grow and develop their potential. The role that was a bit harder for me to learn was that of justice. I also had to be fair. And in fact, in when I started my career, I started as an elementary teacher. And basically, I could summarize my rules in my classroom as 3 rules: be truthful, be loving, and be just, which is another way of saying being fair. And in fact, I think you can kind of think about them and analyze and kind of use it as a diagnosis of your own self in your actions with other people. Am I being truthful? Am I being loving? And am I being fair or just? Now, whereas truth is the individual, in the community primarily, you should be focusing on love and then bring the others into play. In an institution, and as a teacher and as a dean of a school or a head of a department or chairman of a board, my primary responsibility was to be just while being truthful and loving. So it is the role of institutions primarily to bring about justice. And if they don't, then society begins to fall apart. Whenever you see injustice in a culture, a government, organization, you'll see that things start falling apart. Because when there is no justice, you are feeling violated, and that results in violence. So justice really is a foundation. I mean, you need to have truth before you can have justice, but you really need to have justice in order for you to love. If you are being unjust to me as an individual, it's very hard for me to love you. And in fact, it's probably counterproductive for me to love you, because that only encourages you. Or my love for you should not be in terms of just forgiveness and saying, oh, it's okay, you can be a tyrant and oppress me, because that only encourages them to be more tyrannical and oppressive. So if you really love them, then you would not let them do that, because you are allowing them to be tyrants and oppressors, which is not good for them. It's not good for anybody. So you need to stop it. You need to stand up to that, which takes courage. It takes moral courage. It may even take sometimes some physical, mental courage. But if you don't do that, then you and the other person don't grow. If you care about the other person, then you shouldn't allow them to do wrong. This goes back to the basic idea of justice, which comes from, I believe, the basic religions. All of the religions and great philosophies have included a principle of justice. And we know that as a golden rule in the West, of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or don't do unto others what you wouldn't want them to do unto you. There are different expressions of it. But that is a form of justice. that you are fair to other people as you want people to be fair to you. So what causes this, and what helps us to become just? And how do institutions and individuals? Well, there are two primary powers that connect with that, and love is one of them. The second one is fear. And so basically justice is based on two key concepts or frameworks. That is punishment and reward. And one is the fear of punishment and the desire or love for reward. And so if you do not reward and punish fairly and wisely as an individual, community, culture, institution, government, you will have problems because there will be an imbalance in the society. There will not be harmony. There will not be peace. And so to be able to create that unity that we've talked about earlier, you need to have the justice as a foundation. There needs to be some fairness and some equity. There needs to be some judgment about what is right and what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, what is true and what is not true, what is loving and what is not loving. All of those require this sense of justice. Now, as we said earlier in the earlier segments, these senses of justice go through various stages of development. And we always start off with our bodies as infants. What is fair is what makes me happy, what satisfies my body. That's what's fair. If I am crying and my mother is exhausted, I don't care about I'm not worried about being fair to my mom or to my family, or that we're out at a restaurant or something. What is fair is that my bodily needs get taken care of. As I grow, what is fair is that my ego needs get taken care of. That's the fairness. And so if you, for instance, if we're dividing the cake, as the classic kind of example is, I always think what is fair is I should get the bigger piece. That's a very ethnocentric, egocentric way of thinking. As we grow, we are able to, it's a first-person perspective. You only see fairness from your perspective. You can't see through the eyes of your brother or sister or your mother or father or other people. You see through your eyes. As you grow, you begin to see through eyes that maybe if I get the big piece of cake and they get the small piece, you can see how they would see that's not fair. Earlier, you don't see or you don't care about that. As you grow, you begin to see, they have another perspective. And so your sense of justice has to now include that second person perspective. You're dealing with the other person. And as you become ethnocentric, your fairness expands to your group. What is fair is what is fair for our group, which is very much kind of in play in many of the cultural movements happening now, is that there's this kind of a tribalistic or identity kind of politics happening, that what is fair is that, and people only see fairness from their own group, is that our group gets treated right, gets treated the best way, that we have our rights, and we don't care about the other person's rights because we don't even see their perspective. They don't have a perspective. They're not even people. And so we don't have to be fair to them because they are not worth our consideration. So this idea of justice is very essential for any society, any civilization, any community, any organization to function. And so again, when you're in a situation you'll have to think about what is fair. What should we do that is the right thing to do? Which is the good in the Greek philosophy? What is the good is really justice. It is being as fair to other people as you would like them to be fair to you. So we also have to recognize that how we cultivate that justice is through a wise application of rewards and punishments. We can do that to ourselves. So if I find, for instance, going back to the idea of the cake, and I want to eat the cake, and I have to be able to reward myself by saying, oh, I'm a good boy because I gave half to my sister. Not my body would say, that was stupid. You're bigger than she is. You should have taken the bigger half. But my ego, or my fear of maybe punishment from my mother, or even my sister in that matter, would cause me to divide the cake, or to divide it and say, I'll divide it, you get to pick. That's a way of kind of encouraging fairness. So we have to find what rewards and punishments work for us as individuals that help us to become good, to do better, to create greater unity, to establish peace, to create welfare. By justice, you're creating tranquility and security within the whole world, quite frankly, but for whatever community you're dealing with. And so the more you have that, the more your community will prosper. And we have to find this, using that same body metaphor before, we have to be just, we have to treat the different parts of the bodies according to justice, not equality. My body parts need different things, but they all need to be treated fairly. My heart, if my heart says, well, I'm the most important organ, if I don't function, everyone goes to dies. If it starts hogging all the blood, let's say, to itself, or saying, I'm not going to work so hard, it itself is killing itself. It's hurting itself. It feels like, well, I'm getting more blood for myself, but because it's depriving the rest of the body, it actually is hurting itself. And we have to realize that we're doing that as nations in the world, that the nations of the world are very much like the organs of our body. They are all part of one organic planet, one world. They are all connected. They all affect one another. If they don't work together, they will suffer. If they are not united, they will not progress. And if they do not have justice, there is hard to be united. It is hard to have your neighbor taking everything and for you to love them and be united with them when they are tyrannic, are oppressing you, when they are being unfair, when they have 20 times the resources you have and are not sharing that, even half of those with you. So with all of that, I hope you can keep some balance in your life. I hope you can find that the ideas of truth, love, and justice work together as a whole. And as they spin, you develop strength, your community grows. It becomes like the propellers on a helicopter. And as you raise up, you begin to develop higher perspectives. When you're on the ground, you see it from that level. You have this, you move beyond your first and second and third person perspective, and hopefully you can get a universal perspective, an ultimate perspective, that you can work towards truth, love, and justice from the view of an ultimate power, ultimate concern. Thank you.